Leighton, you've got us all excited. Is it too soon to run onto the streets in jubilation?
Well, I mean, you could if you wanted to celebrate the fuel price. I certainly think there is cause for celebration. Look, I mean, I think there's still a lot to go. We've got 2 weeks before the end of June, Thembekile, and, you know, a lot can happen in that time. We've seen in the last couple of weeks the rand has fluctuated quite a lot in a 2-week period, and international petroleum prices, crude oil prices have done the same. I think from our point of view, we are pretty positive we're going to have a decrease going into July. I think it's just a question now of exactly how big that decrease is going to be.
So as we wait then for the July fuel price announcement, the question on many people's lips will be whether it'll be followed by another decrease, or we'll see what happened in the last 12 months where you get a good decrease and then the fuel price quickly jumps back up again.
Certainly, and I think exactly for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, the volatile rand against the US dollar, I think at the beginning of May it was trading around the 14 Rand 10 band to the US dollar. Currently it's around 14 Rand 80 to the greenback. So within the space of a couple of weeks, we've seen it lose quite a lot of value. The same goes for international petroleum products. We saw at one stage crude oil was around $70 a barrel. It's currently around $61 a barrel. I mean, from the Automobile Association's point of view, we'd certainly like to see a sustained decrease in the fuel price over the next 6 months. But it's a crystal ball that I'm not willing to bet my life on just yet, Thembekile. I think certainly indications are that if the economy recovers a little and international product prices remain where they are, there may be good news for the months ahead. But it's speculative at this stage. I think for now, let's just look at the next 2 weeks and be hopeful that we're going to have a decrease going into July.
One thing you have spoken quite clearly on, Leighton, in your statement on this issue is that it is the ANC's confusion, if we can term it that way, or the public debate among its leaders on economic policy, the Reserve Bank and so on, that's messing with the stability of the rand and indeed denying us the full impact or the fruits of this moment.
Certainly. I mean, I think when you look at where the rand was at the beginning of the month, and then we had the debate around the Reserve Bank and quantitative easing and where the bank needs to position itself and what its mandate is going to be, we saw the rand devalue. And I think a lot of investors and certainly a lot of people monitoring the rand would have wanted some policy certainty around that issue. I think one of the things that we mentioned was that we wanted to see more policy certainty, because policy certainty certainly does help the rand remain stable. So that for us is a very key factor going forward. If the rand remains where it is, then unfortunately, future decreases in the fuel price may be unlikely. I think from our point of view, we'd like to see the rand strengthen and to stay at that position for a sustained period of time, and certainly that's going to take some economic policy certainty.
That's the domestic picture, Leighton, but as we know, crude oil prices determined at international level. We're watching at the moment a very tense situation between Iran, the Saudis, along with the Americans. We've seen the developments in the last 24 hours or so around the tankers that are either deliberately targeted or caught fire. How much is that going to affect us, given that the Saudis and the Iranians play such a big role in the provision of crude?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are beginning to question exactly what the heck is going on in these regions and what's going on with that oil supply. Certainly in the case of what happened with those oil tankers, I think there's a lot more questions than answers. It's definitely going to have an impact on the price of crude oil. It's definitely going to have an impact on the international petroleum product prices. And when those prices go up, as we've seen in the past, then invariably South Africans get affected by that. If there's a perfect storm and the rand devalues against the greenback and oil prices increase, then all bets obviously are off. So that's a situation we'd like not to see. What we want to see is a sustained decrease. So we've got the rand at pretty high levels at the moment. If the rand improves in the last 2 weeks of the month and oil remains where it is, then, hopefully we can see a significant decrease. But you're absolutely correct. I think we have to realize as South Africans, we are at the mercy of international geopolitical developments. And what you've just described, Thembekile, is certainly one major factor in that.
Leighton, we live in hope, and if we do get a steady or a steep decrease, the party is at your house. Thank you for speaking to us tonight. Leighton Beard from the Automobile Association.